Yo, what is up? It is I, the Haunted Scythe, and today we are going to be playing a little game called Dagon. Okay, so Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Oh. Okay, that's one way to start. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the elder signs. So right-click, focus my eyes. Okay, you can also access all found facts later. They'll be available in the main menu. Okay.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Yo.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
What happened? Morphine. Morphine entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War and World War I. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1550 or 1854. Who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Okay.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Okay, so World War I.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Okay, so we're prisoners on the ship. The Huns. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a domain in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July in 1900, before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited, just as 1,000 years ago the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention in 1899. Okay, so this thing was formed a year ago, and they were like, nah, we need to make a name for ourselves by murdering everyone.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Okay. But these people were being very, very not. I think they took us prisoners for being nice, okay. But escape is obviously going.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
This is a very pretty game. This would be a terrifying situation, though.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Return to short stories. Dagon was written in July 1917 and first published in 1919 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduce an element from the Cthulhu mythos. Dagon itself, a pagan cult worshipping Dagon, later appears The Shadow over Innsmouth, one of Lovecraft's most popular works. In 1917, 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jervis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. These two works marked Lovecraft's return to short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend, William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
Whoa, what change?
Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Yo. What is happening? There was a turn.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Dude, look at those things.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Yeah, I can't blame you, my guy.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Dude. This is wonky, bro. I gotta say, this game looks so nice, though. Oh, I don't even.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Yo, that thing's moving.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
Okay, that makes sense.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Dude, that thing's moving, yo. The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rock created when superheated pressured rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and macroalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga eventually reached Australia. I assume that's quite a distance.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
Okay.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Dude, I don't like that thing is right there. All these things are kind of dead in a way, but this is right here.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Okay. Alright, we're good. Dude, what is this though? Whoa.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
I feel like we're finding things we shouldn't be finding. I feel like these aren't things I should be seeing. Ooh, oh, that's a whale. That's really, really cool. No, they didn't just pop me here. There's gotta be one of those secret things. Right? Where? Maybe it's just for whale scenery. This game's really, it looks
That
really
night,
nice.
I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Okay. I don't like that. I don't like that things are moving. This is one gigantic octopus. Oh my gosh.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Yeah.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Dude, is this the hill that was
I know
moving
not
earlier?
why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain,
Okay.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
Dude,
Such
that's
visions
so
as I had
pretty.
experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Oh, true, true.
Indeed,
That's
I
facts.
now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset.
Oh no.
Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Do I get to move? No, I don't. I don't, unless I... No, I don't. Oh, I gotta get my pack. Oh yeah, okay. Taking it. The loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to his daily meetings and loitering in the New York cafeterias and resorted to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe, which with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of paper scattered across the floor.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
Yeah.
But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Okay, we're fine. We're good and fine and nice. The skies look so rad.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Oh no.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Don't tell me you're gonna go down there a few hundred feet. You're not gonna survive a few hundred feet, bud.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Dude, this is so cool. But I feel like I shouldn't even be taking the other things. It gets me out of the immersion, bruh. What
That
even
it
is
was
this?
merely a
What's
gigantic
happening?
piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
Dude.
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Dude, look at that. That's not natural. Ooh.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith,
Yep.
whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Okay. Dude. It'd be so cool to come here for like work, but like coming here for not work and just being plopped here. Oh my goodness, this would be terrifying. This would not be okay.
The moon,
Okay, we got water. We got
now
water.
near
It's
the
positive.
zenith,
Whoa,
shone
whoa,
weirdly
maybe
and
not.
vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm,
What is
and
that?
revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
I'm worried about. What is that? We got mer people? Question mark. We got fish. We got the ocean. We got sky fish.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Ah.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Storytelling methods. Alright.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seemed to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Oh no.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size.
No shot, dude, they're huge.
But in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Okay.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Better hope that, because otherwise... otherwise...
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What are you seeing? What are we seeing?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
shot.
the thing slid into view above the dark
shot.
waters.
Oh my gosh.
Loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, above which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
This thing's the same size of a whale, by the way.
I think I went mad then.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Yeah. Oh snap, no, we leaving. Go.
I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Okay, so you definitely snapped. You're definitely gonzo. Dude, see that whale? Remember that whale? Same size. That thing. And it
I have
stands.
indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
Dude. The atmosphere's so good.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
Okay.
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Yeah. They ain't believing you, bro. They definitely are not believing you.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Oh, Dagon. Yo, Dagon. Was the main deity of the Philistines worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. Just blah 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 blah. Okay. So he's mistaken as fish.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Hopelessly conventional. Cthulhu mythos. Mythos. We're in his office, right? Or is this our? Why did we come over here? Why did we? What?
It is at
We're
night,
back. Oh,
especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Is this room way
I tried morphine,
worse?
but the
Yeah.
drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
They all gonna think you crazy, bro. They all gonna think you crazy. And just a morphine
Often,
addict.
I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken
Yeah.
and raving in the open boat
Yeah.
after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and
Dude.
floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Nah. Nah. Hex nah. Hex no. Hello?
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Yeah. Hey, bro, it couldn't be him. These two.
It shall not find me.
Nah, you ain't gotta die, bro. It's too big. It's too big. It's too big. The things are too big to be fit in the
God,
door.
that hand!
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's not too big.
The window! The window!
I ain't about this. We ain't gotta die, bro. Ugh. It just ends with me dying? Dude, what just happened? What? Yo. Okay, so we just died. That was Dagon. This game is kind of cool. It wasn't really like a normal horror game. Like it was like it was just a story basically. But it was definitely cool, interesting. That was something. That end was definitely wow. Yeah. If you guys want to see, I think I'm gonna start posting more horror type games. If you guys want to see that, let me know. I'm gonna try to get videos out weekly. But for now, this is Volcanic Islands, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.